So here's my testimony. So back in 2017, I was freshly divorced, and I didn't believe in Yeshua at all. I didn't believe in Father at all. Nope. I hated them. I didn't want anything to do with them. I was a metalhead, man. I like drinking. I like smoking. I still smoke cigarettes on the regular. And one day I'm sitting between two of my friends, my friend Danny, my friend Lou, after work, and I started experiencing all these strange things happen to me, like voices. And I know I'm not nuts. I have a pretty much degree in psychology. I went on and off. I used to be a biology major, and I made it to my junior year, and then I joined the Marine Corps and went and did a tour in Iraq. Came back, had two beautiful boys, and struggled in this country. My marriage fell apart, and I ended up living back home with my parents, who were in the middle of their own divorce. And that year, my grandmother also passed away. So a lot of terrible things were happening to me, and that's when everything started happening all funny. I started hearing voices. It was a beautiful woman is the voice. I knew she was beautiful. I never saw her though, but she kept talking to me. I thought she was an angel, to be honest with you. Um, and yeah, she would just she wouldn't speak about anything in particular, like no prophetic warnings or anything like that. It wasn't like that. It was basically reminders to go back to Yeshua's Jesus. If you didn't know, I don't know why people call him Jesus. To be honest, his name is Yeshua. And honestly, I hate that word, Jesus, because of everything behind that word that people take for granted and people brush off. If you just used his real name, you'd probably get a lot further in life. Anyway, so there I am, sitting between them, and we're smoking oil. It was weed oil, I think. And we like to do that. I never did hard drugs. I just usually drank and did a little bit of that. But that particular day, I think we were sitting there in the garage of Lou's house, and me, him, and Danny were just sitting there. They were on each side of me, and all of a sudden, I just felt something strange happen. It was like something opened, something in my head. It was like, and then that's where I got into this whole spirituality thing. I explored all the religions anyway because I was a fool and an idiot. Uh, but it was like fire touched my head. It was like electricity, pure energy hit me. And it hit them too. You could tell something weird was happening. And, we just basically talked and opened up. And they got weird after that. Both of them started acting a little different. We all worked together, like I said. So they started getting, more bold in the things they would do, and they would start drinking more heavily and smoking more heavily. But and that lasted, I don't know, maybe a year and a half or so, maybe a little longer for them. And then we just kind of fell to the wayside after I went back to school. I still have contacts with them, but it wasn't like it was back then, is what I'm trying to get to you guys. Um, anyway, so I have another friend who is not Christian. He is essentially as unchristian and unbelieving as it gets. I've tried everything in my power to kind of coax him along. That's what I do. I read the Bible pretty much daily, and I didn't read so much back then because I didn't have one. I went and bought one from a bookstore and, just started dabbling in it. I'd read a little bit here and there. And so, yeah, we drank and smoked Because that's all we really do. We call it the peanut butter and jelly of the working man. Of getting messed up. The peanut butter and jelly getting messed up. This weed and alcohol. So there I am, and he lives in the third-story apartment, pretty close to my parents' house, so I used to go there all the time, and we'd just, we'd play video games. As adult men, we'd play video games, and literally do nothing. Except get more messed up, and then we'd smoke cigarettes off his back porch, which is basically a fire escape stoop on the third floor, so you'd have to watch what you were doing because you didn't want to fall off that sucker. Anyway, so he sleeps on a couch, and I sleep on the futon that I gave to him. Now, the futon is destroyed. It's broken. Half the stuff is messed up, so it's basically like a squatter's cabin in his house. But I'm laying there and just trying to go to sleep, and before I got to sleep, this is important. I don't know why it's important, but I just know it to be important. I didn't fall asleep. I couldn't fall asleep, and I didn't feel too well. So I'm laying there, and I don't feel well, and all of a sudden, bang. It was like my soul popped out of my body. Now, this never ever happened to me in my entire life. Not a single time. That's why I was always skeptical about religion anyway. It's like, yeah, right, Never had any religious experiences. No angels ever came to me in a dream. Never saw one. Still have never seen one. Other than these two events. And I'll get to that. And I popped out of my body and I flew up into, basically, it was like, between, I would say, the atmosphere and the earth. And the earth, I couldn't tell if it was flat or round. I really didn't pay attention to that because it was like such an awesome thing that I was just floating there. That was me. I was floating there and I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't scary. I thought it was awesome, And I look out into this vast sea of stars and it's beautiful, and I'm just, wow, this is amazing. I don't know anything about astrology or the Revelation 12 sign. Oh. No, I didn't know anything about that stuff. Truly, I didn't. And I'm looking out there and wondering what I'm going to do, because this has never happened before. But I wasn't afraid or anything. In fact, I almost thought it was a dream. It was like, oh, this is the weirdest experience / dream I ever had. And all of a sudden, this thing comes up from the abyss, this massive thing. And now, I know now, looking back, that, all the prophets and apostles and all them, some of them talked about fiery serpents in the abyss, or a fiery serpent, a big dragon-type serpent. And this is literally what it was. It slowly reared up from the bottom of nothing. It doesn't make sense. It's like looking out into space and then being able to see the horizon of the earth, and then at the bottom of the horizon, this thing slowly raises up, and the enormity of this thing, it was like where we live to it is basically like a little raindrop to it. It's how big it is. And all it ever did to me was rear up. It slowly emerged from this abyss type thing, and it just looked at me. And I remember the color of its eye and the color of its skin. It was a purplish skin. Could have been red, could have been purple. I leaned towards purple because that's what it was. It was really dark out there. And its eye was green. And it was not a serpent's eye, so to speak. It was more like the eye of a frog or the eye of an octopus, which doesn't make sense, but that's just what it was. To explain to you what it looked like. And the eye was so massive that I was literally like a pinprick to this thing, and all it did was look straight through me. Like I was like, what are you doing up here? Why are you up here? You're not supposed to be up here. And it wanted to let me know, basically without even speaking or doing anything other than staring right through me, that I was nothing. Like I was nothing, and that me being up here was a grave mistake. And I wasn't terrified. That's the thing, though. I wasn't terrified. I was just kind of awestruck by this thing that I'm looking at and thinking, this has to be a dream. But this is the most nuts dream I've ever had in my life. But it wasn't a dream because I wasn't asleep. Now explain that. And anyway, so it stared at me for I don't know how long. It didn't. Time didn't really seem to matter at that point in time. And all of a sudden, bang! I'm back into my body, and I wake up, and I'm looking around, and I'm back in my friend's apartment. And then I go to sleep. Yeah. So another night, I don't tell anybody about this, really. I kind of allude to people at work what had happened to me because a lot of people like to tell me about their dreams and stuff when I'm working because we have nothing better to talk about. I worked in a warehouse, moving boxes. I'm sitting there one night. This is after that event, and I'm not really worried about this big monster that just came up out of the depths of nowhere because in my head it didn't make sense, so why would I explain that to anybody? So the other night I see this black dog. It was like a spirit dog, black. And it looked kind of like a Doberman, but it was really nice. It wasn't a mean jerk of a dog, and I was confused again. And it looked at me, it panted a few times, and then it just ran off in front of the living room and was vanished, gone. I was like, okay, what the hell's going on? Is there like a poltergeist in this guy's house? Is there a ghost in here that's messing with me somehow? And I just am too stupid to figure out that, something's messing around in there. Because I don't know anything about this old house, And so I start, feverishly looking into, black dogs. And now I was born November 9th, 1987. I'll be 33 this year. And I don't know why that's important, but I figure it actually plays into what I found, which makes more sense to me than anything else I found regarding a black dog. So what I would do is I would search YouTube and I would go through and see if anybody else had, dreams or visions of black dogs and what that meant. And the only lady that I actually found, I think she was an Israeli lady that made a cartoon about her visions and experiences, which really blew me away. I'll link her video to the black dog, and in it she writes 1987, which is why I ran to that one, right? And I was like, bang, okay, that's really, really big coincidence that I was born in 1987. This lady writes about a black dog in her little cartoon, and it was an impressively nuts little cartoon. Again, after you listen to me, go watch her video, and you'll see what she saw before she passed. Anyway, so after I find that out, I go back to work for a few days, and this actually happens a few times. I'm not sure if this has all happened to me in the fall. So this was all in the fall. Everyone's like, September 23rd was, Elijah's coming. I don't know anything about that crap, to be honest with you. Everyone's like, where's Elijah? Dude, enough with the Elijah crap. None of you are Elijah. I'm not Elijah. Stop with the stupid crap with that crap. Anyway, I was never told I was Elijah. Screw that, dude. Stop. Anyway, so there I am, and after a few days of that and finding out what that is, I was pretty set in my ways. I was like, okay, that was some kind of spirit guiding me to that video, because that video actually helped me understand a lot of things and actually led me to Yeshua. Kind of. I was still on the fence about it because obviously I've not been a Christian since I was a little boy, and I actually got kicked out of Sunday school. I kicked a kickball through the Sunday school window, and they said I was no longer allowed back in, which I didn't care. Sunday school sucked. It was boring. church sucked. It was boring. It was the same crap. It's like, oh, let's read from scripture and you're blah 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 and everything's so formal. I hated it. I hated it. I couldn't stand it. And anyway, so back to my friend's house again, same place. And this time, we smoked. I think we don't really drink that often. We drink. I drink beer usually. Sometimes I'll take shots of the liquor, but these times usually I didn't do any of that. I just smoked from from the pen. And I remember, I wasn't that messed up or anything, but I was just sitting there trying to go to sleep, and boom, I popped out of my body one more time. And I'm like, oh, great. Here we go. I get to go look at this thing again, right? Because last time, yeah, it was cool until that thing shows up. And, of course, it shows up again. I'm floating in space again. And it rears its head up like it did last time. And this time, it's more angry with me. I could just tell, like, something about it was angrier with me this time for doing the same thing again. Like, what are you doing interrupting my time? You're nothing. Because again, this thing is so big that our entire planet, I'm just going to use planet because I don't know if we're on a disk that's, the flat earth, No. Wherever we are is so small to this thing that he doesn't give a damn about what we do. He doesn't. It's like he guards this place, but he doesn't. And I was in a spot where I was wrong. But I couldn't control it. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like, oh yeah, let me pop me out of my body again, man, and then shoot me up to this dragon and let everyone think I'm a crazy person anyway. Yeah, that's what I want. And this time was different, though, because this time, see, I didn't know what I was doing again, and I'm still looking at this thing, and this time I'm like, please, anything, help me out. I don't know. I want to go back. I don't want to be near this thing anymore. This thing is terrifying me. Because I felt like this time it was going to do something to hurt me. And all of a sudden I looked past it. It was like up. It was up into like, just like north and up, kind of. Like, in my perception. I don't know where north is, but where I'm facing to my direct north and up is this pinprick of light. And I'm like, that's weird. That's a cool looking star. That star's a little bit bigger than normal, but hey. I'm not really focused on that right now. I'm focused on this massive reptilian thing that's right there, And all of a sudden I see that light grow. And it grew into this man. Golden light. Man made of golden light. And he was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. He was gorgeous. And it's like he floated down with tremendous speed, but it was really graceful. I don't know how to explain it. He floated down, but he was so graceful. And when he did, what happened was, I didn't realize how big he was. I didn't realize the immensity between these two things. And what he did to that thing is what basically that thing did to me. His eye met this thing's eye, and how I was just a pinprick to this thing. Like, if I was to go into the eye of this reptile, it would be like taking like a little pinprick or a little tiny thorn and throwing it into somebody's eye. That's how small I was. I was smaller than that. It was like, I'll probably draw you a picture and post it with this little testimony here. But this guy. And I knew he was awesome, and I knew he was friendly, and I knew he was good. I just knew it. He didn't say anything, but I knew he was there to help. Because I knew I was in the wrong spot. And he looked at it, and when he did, his eye was so massive and immense and beautiful. And I remember it was a blue eye. I don't know why it was blue. It just was blue. And anyway, he looks at this thing, and all of a sudden, thousands of light particles, specks, start erupting between these two beings. And it's like I'm caught kind of in the middle, kind of. I'm still in the same spot, just by the earth, right? And the only way I know how to explain it is it's like I could see two spots. There was me right underneath the eye of this thing, but then it was like having a panoramic camera and being able to see different spots that were happening at different times. And so like I could see me and be where I was, but I could also pop into different spots to take a look at what was going on between these two things, if that makes any sense. Um, and when they met, it was like sparks of literal golden light just started showering the earth and everything around it. And I just knew that something was happening, something tremendous was happening. Um, it was showers of light. It was showers of it and it hit the earth too, which was interesting. It was like light upon light, just boom, 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 boom. It was like a cascade of light just hitting the earth, like everywhere, boom, 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 boom. And the eye of this man made that thing seem so small and insignificant, like that thing did to me, which I thought was just a beautiful play. Like the only thing that would make me feel safe and good was this thing, this person doing exactly the same thing to it as it had done to me. And I thought that was awesome. I don't even know how to describe how like cool it was. And I just remember this thing like it like was defeated without doing anything. Like it was defeated because it was like punked. It got punked out by this big ass, huge, cool golden man, and he just sunk down. And all of a sudden, bang! I'm in a different spot. Like the golden man was gone, and I just started floating, like above this beautiful area of clouds. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And I'm standing up there, and I don't know where I am because no, it didn't look like Earth or anything like that. It was literally like it was being on top of the clouds. Like if you're in an airplane and you're just up there, you can see the tops of the clouds and how the clouds look really cool from like underneath the plane itself if you look out a plane's window. And I'm up there, and it's not, there was no sun. That's what I thought was weird about it, but there was light everywhere. It's like golden light clouds, but they just looked like normal clouds to us, except I was on top of them, and it was just me. And in the great distance was a man, and he was just as the prophets describe him as. He was Father. He was him. He was that man, God. And I stood there, and he talked to me. He was far off. He had white hair, woolly white hair. He did. He really did. He had a white beard, white clothes, and he was standing afar off. Like if he came closer, it's like insta death or something. But I wasn't afraid. Maybe I should have been. I don't know. I didn't know anything about the Bible. I didn't know anything about religion. I didn't have any idea about that stuff. And he spoke to me, but when he spoke, it was like trumpets. He sounded like lots of different trumpets speaking. It was just the weirdest voice I ever heard, because it didn't make sense, but I couldn't understand what he said to me. He just spoke with trumpets. Sorry, I don't know how to describe that any better. But they were beautiful. It was blast. It was like, brr. It was, oh man, trumpets. It's all I know how to describe it as, is trumpets. So yeah, he sounded like trumpets. And hold on. Anywho, he sounded like trumpets, and then bang, I'm back in my body again. And how do you explain that to people? How do you explain that to anybody without them thinking you're nuts? Totally nuts, insane. And I can remember bits and pieces of people. They looked like young men, but they were gorgeous, beautiful people. They were tan, they had brownish hair. And the way they look at you is just like complete complete love. They they treat you like a little kid. They treat you interestingly, and I have a hard time explaining because I knew stuff happened after I talked to the man who spoke like trumpets, who I think is God. I think he's God the Father. He was ancient. Like the clouds were made of him. He was made of them. It was weird. It was just really weird. And I'm up there, and I don't remember most of what happened after. I just remember them looking at me and then talking with me. And yeah, so they were up there, and they're just pushing me back, telling me like I can't be up here anymore. I have to go home. Oh, not home, but I have to go back. So I was like, all right. It sucked, but I went back to my body, and boom, I just went back to work as normal. And so I never spoke about this really with anybody. I didn't know how to talk about it with anybody. Like, who the hell would listen? I started watching a lot of prophetic dreams on the internet, and listening to people and all this crazy cool stuff that happened to them. And like, oh, angels came and I saw angels and all. And it's like, wow, man, that's amazing. Like, I am the prophet of God. And they do all this insane crap, and it's like, but they're rich and they're surrounded by poor people. And these poor people eat up every word they say, and they just go on pillaging these people, these good people who are looking for help. And they're thinking these prophets, these amazing like men that wear the beautiful suits, are gonna help them out, and that their religion is gonna be something that's gonna tether them and make them rich and feel good. And it's like, no, this place is nothing like that. You missed the point. I think that's what I got out of it. The point was not this place. This place is disgusting. It's awful. Anyway, yeah, I'm just rattling off stuff because honestly, I'm speaking on the fly here. Just from what I can remember, what happened to me those 2 years ago, whatever it was, 2017. So I go to school, and I was in great shape at the time. All I knew to do after my divorce was to, work out and kind of just consolidate the small things I could control, and just be there for my friends and whatever they needed. I had some money at the time, and from working and from the VA, because I did my tour in Iraq and I was diagnosed with PTSD and all that stuff. But this had nothing to do with PTSD or any of my experiences in war and combat and those things. It had nothing to do with it. It was so different and so tremendous that it didn't make sense why I would go up there. Like, I didn't do anything to deserve anything from God, really. I was a sinning creep. Me and my friends like to joke that we were the scumbags. The girls would be like, "Oh, this is a scumbag," That was us. Didn't have a lot of friends. I had like maybe 3 or 4 friends, and even now it's like they all moved away, and so I usually just sit in my room after the whole COVID thing happened, which is also interesting because after that big event happened where I went up and heard the trumpets, one more thing happened, where I was at my friend Lou's house, one of the original 2, where everything started happening that was weird and funny. And he would joke with me. It was like all this like subliminal stuff, like I don't know how to describe where we were mentally in terms of like what was happening to us. But I can remember one night we were sitting there and I showed him the video of the dog, the woman with the black dog, the 1987 video, and we watched it and we both kind of fell asleep. And I remember him passing out during the middle of it, towards the end because it was late, and we would just share our experiences with spiritually and things like that, and what we thought was basically, do all that philosophical crap you do when you got nothing else to do with your friends. And I laid down on the floor because he was on his bed, and I laid on the floor next to his old dog, and all of a sudden it happens again, like another weird vision, because I knew I wasn't asleep, but this time it was a little different. It was pure darkness. Pure darkness, and I remember seeing a book. It was a book that was floating in midair. A book was there, and I was like, that's this, what is going on, kind of thing. Like, why would you see a book and floating in the air? And like I said, I'm not in this room anymore. I'm just in blackness. I don't know how to describe the blackness, but it was just like if you close your eyes, pretend you'd close your eyes, but you had vision, like you could still see, and that kind of darkness where it was just pure darkness, no spots of light or anything, no residual light in your eyes, nothing like that. And I see this book. It was a beautiful book. It didn't say anything on it, but when it opened, it opened like nobody touched it. It just opened. And it opened like you would read a book. Literally, just open a Pew Bible. It's a hardcover book. And when it did, I heard music. I'd never heard that music before in my life. And I listen to a lot of music, different kinds. I don't care about, the type of music that I listen to. If it's a good song, to me, it's a good song. And when it opened, it was tremendous music. It was... like I said, I'd never heard the music before, but it was there, and I will always remember the song. I'm not going to sing it right now, but there was no words. It was just like instruments playing, but there were instruments I'd never heard before, if that makes sense. They sounded kind of like saxophones and guitars all rolled into this one music. And it wasn't just saxophones and guitars. It was like every instrument was playing in unison to make this beautiful sound, and it started high and went low, and then it was just tremendous feeling. It just was like I had never heard that kind of music before in my life. And when that happened, the book opened, and I was shot up again to a different place this time. And this place was a lot different from the other two times. I didn't see the earth or anything like that. I didn't sit above the earth and just wait for anything to happen. This time it was a totally different place. It was dark, and I came up to this, I don't know how to describe it other than a crystal, but it was like a reddish crystal, reddish purpley crystal, and it was massive. It was massive. I stood at its base, and I knew I had another person with me. I thought it was my friend at the time, but I don't know who it was. It was just somebody standing next to me. And I looked at this crystal to look at it, it was like an upside down pyramid almost, but it was a diamond from what I can recall. It was like diamond E. It was like a perfect pyramid-ish type crystal pointed downward. So it was pointed downward, and the walls of this crystal went up and out. So like an upside down pyramid would be, and then it would pyramid up again. But it was so big that I didn't know what it was. And I just kind of looked at it, and I looked around, and nothing tremendous happened. Nothing amazing other than the song that I learned and heard, and this crystal. Perfect crystal. It was perfect. Absolutely perfect in its shape and dimension. Like I said, it was reddish and purple. And didn't see anybody else other than that. And when I looked to see who was next to me, that person just kind of like vanished. It was like, poof. 1 minute he was there, 1 minute he was gone. It was like showing me this thing, and then that's all they wanted me to see, and then bang, I flew back into my body again. But this time when I flew back into my body, it was like a bolt of lightning hit me in the top of my head, and I felt electricity go from the front of my forehead to the back to the base of my neck, and it knocked me out completely. I was out, gone, totally in deep sleep. Like I thought I had I thought it was not an aneurysm, like not a brain aneurysm, but like what happens to old people? A stroke. I thought I was having like a stroke or something, and that's what I thought. But I woke up and I was totally fine. No, nothing happened to me. I felt great. And I didn't tell my friend, obviously, the next morning what had happened to me, but he threw me a bottle of water and he said, what did he say? He said something like, he said something like mockingly about like biblical, like mockingly biblical or something like that. I don't remember because it was just like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, 2017. And since then, I started exploring what the hell had happened to me because, when something like that happens to you, it changes your perspective on things. And since then, I've dove into religion. I dove into Christianity because people were explaining what had happened to them, and it resonated with me what was happening to them. With their near-death experiences and things like that. So yeah, that's literally what happened to me. I don't know how to describe it any better. I really don't. You can call me nuts, you can call me liar. I don't really care. I figured out that I don't want money. I don't want anything from this place. Money is the most cruel and evil thing that you guys take for granted, and it's the one thing that's going to damn all of you, I think. All you so-called Christians who preach and, try to do all these works for God and things like that. And it's like, no, man. No. Recently, I started having visions again. I was at my friend's house, the one that I'd seen the black dog, and had that experience with, Father in the clouds. That's what I call him. I call him Father because he was tremendous, but he loves me. He loves you. He loves everybody. And for a long time, I thought I had done something that would piss him off because I try to follow all his laws as best I know how to do. Like observe Sabbath and things like that. Even though I don't know when the Sabbath is, usually I just try to. I get up in the morning when I go take my shower, get on my hands and knees, and just say good morning to him and stuff like that now because I know that he doesn't care what we do. All sins are forgiven, can be forgiven, and it makes sense to me why that thing would happen, like why he would say that now. I have an understanding of why he's talking about those things. Anyway, back to the one final thing that I did get to see clearly, and I did see Yeshua this time. Like I've been asking to see him for a while. I dated my professor, and it's funny that she'd be a widow too. She is a widow. She lost her husband. He committed suicide, and she was having a rough time. And we were around the same age, and I just kicked it off, and really fell for each other, which is pretty amazing. My friends would laugh and be like, "Dude, you're in that one special club, man." It's like, cool, man. But we dated for a while, and during that time, it was unbiblical, as unbiblical as probably you could get in terms of a relationship. But she doesn't believe whatsoever in Yeshua, which is really, really sad. It breaks my heart, actually, thinking about that and what happened, because I didn't have a lot of money towards the end. In fact, before COVID hit, I had nothing, and I was like kind of losing it. I was like, I don't know. To me, I have a hard time getting jobs. Always had a hard time. Most of the jobs I ever got were basically handed to me by friends. You know, like, hey, I know a guy who's looking for work and things like that. So I always had a hard time seeking work and things because I never cared about money. But yeah, during that time, during that year, almost that year that we were dating, it was like 11 months we dated for. And it fell apart, and even now it's like on and off, which is weird, but I don't want anything to do with sinning against God's laws anymore. I want nothing to do with it, and going and, you know, having fornications with even a woman that I love and cherish is, if we're not married, I don't want it. I don't want any of that stuff. Anyway, sorry, I get really sidetracked with what I'm trying to say. But anywho, I was sitting there again, and all of a sudden, in my friend's apartment, and this happened after I kind of broke up with her and was hoping for anything at that point in time because, you know, I was in a bad way, still kind of am, but it's nothing like it ever will be. Like, I understand now that nothing here is that big a deal. Nothing is. Like, you can prop yourself up on your finances and how much money you make, and you can judge and weigh and measure people based on, you know, what they make and what you think you're worth. But guess what? You're going about it in such a wrong way that you are going to be such a fool when it comes time for the end. And I think that's where we're at anyway, with all the signs that we're seeing. But I go and lay down, and this time was different because I didn't leave my body. It was like a light connected me. And there's so much more I could explain to you guys with all the visions that I've had, but I'll just make some big ones because I think those are the most important. Like there was other ones, like I was just basically birthed. It was weird. I was birthed from a woman. Like, it was weird. It was like being born again in spirit. And when they say that, they literally mean it. Like, you will be birthed again in spirit. Like, you will feel that you will watch yourself be born again. It's insane. I understand it's insane, but it really is immense and tremendous. And that happened to me also. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. I'm not good at talking and preaching and doing all those things, but yeah, you will really truly be born in spirit. It was a weird birth this time though, because this time it's like you are physically present. Like, when you're a baby, all you know is what's happening to you, and you cannot really remember being birthed. But when you're birthed the second time, which they always speak about, you need to be born again in the spirit. You really are in the spirit world being born again. It's insane. Like, you can see the walls, and like, it was, dude. Yeah, just take my word for it. I was birthed again in spirit. It was insane. I saw everything in terms of like the fleshiness of it, and it was disgusting, but it was interesting at the same time. It was like being tunneled from one place to another. It was like a tunnel, but being birthed through a birth canal. It was like, it really was, to describe it, being born again in spirit. It's but anywho, I'm connected to this light this time, and it's the same golden light, but it's a different one. It's more tremendous in my opinion, and it felt good. And it lifted my body up, like from the lower spine to the top of my head. It was like being lifted, being tugged from the middle of your chest, tugged up. If you were laying down and had somebody pick you up by the shirt in the middle of your chest, being pulled up like that. And the light was so tremendous, and I saw him. He was standing next to a bunch of other younger, they weren't men or there were men and women, but they weren't either. It's hard to describe. They were all tan. They all had brownish hair, goldeny brown hair, like dirty blonde brown hair. And he looked at me. He was like a captain of a ship almost. He had that like Captain Morgan stance. He was tremendous. And I couldn't get over his hair. His hair came down to his neck. It was brownish, goldeny brown. He had a beard, and it was like a perfectly trimmed beard, whereas mine's all scraggly and like weird because I never trim it well. He had perfectly trimmed, beautiful hair. And I couldn't get over how beautiful his hair was. It was like, this is Yeshua. This is him. I knew it. He didn't have to say anything. He just looked at me, he smiled, and I and me being the freaking arrogant dork that I am, I was like, well, it's about time. That's all I said. And he smiled. He looked at me like, really? And then bang, he shot me back into my body again. I was like, oh no, I pissed him off, I think. And I feel that light from time to time, and it reminds me of him, and I just know it's him. Like when you have the encounter with him for real, you just know when he's around because it's like a rush of feeling wonderful to the point where it like you want to cry, but you don't want to cry because you don't want anybody to know that you're crying. You know, one of those moments. And that happened not too long ago. That happened like a few months ago. But again, I don't share these things with anybody because they won't believe me anyway. You know, like, oh, he's just a crazy Christian guy now. But I digress. It feels good to talk about it. It feels good to get it out. It feels good to finally be able to talk. And the only reason I'm allowed to talk right now is because yesterday, last night, I was in my room and I was watching all the prophecy stuff like I normally do, like a watchman would, right? And I couldn't pick any video. I couldn't pick any of them. They were all basically the same. Like, oh, rapture dream. Oh, we're gonna be raptured. Oh, this and that. And I just went through my YouTube chat, like YouTube homepage, and I just couldn't pick anybody. And I have a lot of great, wonderful people that like to share their experiences and preach. And I just couldn't pick any of them. I just was like, just done. I was like, man, all of you are screaming the same thing, like, must watch, like, end is near, all this crap. And I'm like, none of them get anywhere with what they say. None of them do. None of you do. None of you go anywhere with the things you speak. It's always the same rapture dream. And when are we going to be raptured? It's soon. You know, and then you just correct the crap out of each other. And it's like, oh, you're not a good Christian if. Oh, you're not a good Christian because that. And it's like, dude, I sat in my room last night and I got on my hands and knees and I was just sitting there thinking, I'm not moving from this spot. I'm in like that position, like where my head is in my hands and my knees are on the ground and I am just in that total submissive position. I did that for about 10 minutes. And I was like, I want something. I'm not moving from this spot till I get something. And I'm like really upset. And I'm starting to feel that hatred that I get from time to time, that anger. It's like it starts slow and it starts like boiling in my head. And I start like going back and forth in my head over and over and over again about, am I insane? Am I insane? Am I going crazy? Is this for real? Is this really the end? Am I just a moron? Should I just go get a normal job and let go of all this stuff because, you know, like, why should I put myself through all this insanity when all it's done is brought more pain and more suffering? And it was like, you know, I got to that point. And eventually I got up and I went downstairs to my kitchen and I'm walking around and I go out on the porch and it's just me because my mom works nights most of the time. My dad doesn't live here anymore. And I go down and I just start thinking, I start asking, and I start getting mad because I'm not getting any answers anymore, right? Like I think God's forgotten me. And I go back upstairs and I try to go to sleep because at this point it's around like 11 or 12 at night. And I try to go to sleep, but I can't because I'm really, really mad and upset that nothing happened to me. And I start thinking about yelling at God and yelling at Yeshua and yelling at the Holy Spirit and yelling at everybody and thinking like angels are, they're bullcrap and all this stuff. And all of a sudden it's like it hits me, bang. I was like, huh. And my own thoughts, I realized they weren't my thoughts, this anger and viciousness. And I said, get away from me, Satan. And immediately, bang, it was like I woke up. And all that upsetness and all that pain was gone. And it hit me. What the hell they were talking about. So Elijah's supposed to come and restore all things. And I was like, how the hell is this guy going to do that? That's impossible. First of all, prophets were poor. I'm poor. I know a lot of stuff that goes on in the spirit I'd like to tout. But how the hell would this person do any of that? And I was like, what kind of great thing is this guy going to do? He's going to be this great mighty conqueror that they say, this mighty one. And I was like, what the hell? How would you do that, right? Because everybody wants to be special and everybody wants to be able to do these things. I get it. And it just hit me. It was like, Father is a father to us. It's like when you see your kids, right? If your dad's out there, when you see your kids, when you look at your son, whatever that son does doesn't so much matter, right? You want the best for them. You want them to grow up and do great and wonderful things. And you want them happy, and you want them to live long, beautiful lives, and you want them to have kids, and you want to see them get old and mature and follow in your footsteps. Because that's what I want for my kids. And I was really thinking about that. I was like, what in the heck are they talking about? Return the fathers to the sons. And I thought about it, and I was like, that's all he wants. He wants you to return to him, not because of what you're going to get in heaven, not because of the treasures that you're awarded when you go there, not for anything. He doesn't want any of that stuff in your head. He wants your love. That's it. When I see my sons, when I get the chance to see them on the weekends or every other week that it is now in the summer, thanks to COVID, I don't care about anything other than seeing them and feeling that love they have for me. It's like when you have little children and they love you so unconditionally and they trust you so completely that when they start to get older, you start losing that more and more in them, right? When all you want is to have them back, not for what you can give them, just to be with them, just to love them and have them love you back, not because they're going to get something from you. And that's what we're all missing. We're all missing that. We're all missing that point. He doesn't want you thinking that, oh, if I follow all these Christian doctrines, if I follow his laws, then I'll get to go to heaven. And because he... See, I trip and stumble on my words all the time. He didn't want that for you. He wants you to get it. He wants your love. And he doesn't want to see you follow his laws because of the rewards you'll get. It's like having your son only come to you when he needs money, when he wants a present. He doesn't actually want you. He just wants the stuff you have. He doesn't want to know you. He just wants the stuff you can give him. That selfishness is how you miss the mark, how you sin. That's it. And it came to me because I started thinking about my sons and all those things and these amazing things these prophets have to do, and what a tremendous job it would be to get that to happen. Like, return all the tribes to Israel, restore all things, be the greatest and mighty. He didn't give a damn about any of that stuff. Joshua only, he traversed 40 miles in his life, and yeah, he had a following, but in the beginning he only knew 20 guys tops. He had his disciples and a few others that, realized who he was. He didn't go around the entire planet. He does now thanks to his kin, us. But the prophets that you read about now, none of them were in any shape or form these mighty, mighty men. They knew the Father, and they loved him not for what he could give to them, but just because they loved him, because they wanted to be with him. And that's the point. If you're a parent, all you want is to love your children and for them to love you back. Does it matter the distance between you and them? Does it matter what they do in life as long as that love is there? And if that's not the reason that you see as important, then I am sorry, you missed the mark. You missed it. You lost it. All these mighty moves of men that go and do amazing things, it's all been done before. It'll be done again. Over and over it has been repeated in history. Nothing you do has not been done in certain aspects that hasn't been done in the past. You can go and conquer. You can go and be a beggar. You can go and be a rich man, a poor man. None of that mattered. The idea behind this place that I understand to be now is you get to see a world without the direct presence of the Father. And your entire job is to figure out the importance of his love for you and the miracles that you are. You're a miracle. You always look for miracles. You always look for the rare occurrences that are outside your norm, but you never looked at your own miracles. That you are, in fact, a mighty miracle. Just being you and understanding love. And understanding the things in your heart that are there anyway. And to love the Father and love Yahshua, not because of what they can give you in heaven, but because they loved you. And they just want to know you. That's why he's going to tell these people that are these great, amazing Christians with their huge churches and on their... He never knew you. He just wants to know you. It breaks his heart that he doesn't know you, that you never actually talked to him. So I implore you, instead of repeating the same dumbass prayers that you guys usually do and, passing blessings out like hotcakes and not taking any of that stuff seriously, talk to him. Wake up in the morning. Say, hey, good morning, Father. Love you. Miss you. Like you would actually speak to your own parents. That's what he wants. That's who he is. Yahshua died for you, his brothers and sisters. And I'm sorry most of you don't figure it out, but I'm here to tell you that's what it's about. Love him, not for what he can give you. You love him because he's your Father. He's always loved you. He's always been there whether you liked it or knew it or not. And he'll always be there. People are like, well, God's never done anything for me. Oh, he hasn't. Also, how do you know he's not going to do anything for you? Like, oh, well, he put me through all this hardship and pain. Yeah, that's the point. He's not here physically with you to guide you. You're supposed to guide yourselves. What do you think those laws were talking about? Love thy brother as thy neighbor. Don't covet each other's wives, because they're your brothers and sisters. Love everything. It's all about love, and you never figured out what love was. You always preach about love, but you never figured out what it was he was talking about. You bring your fathers back to your sons and your sons back to your fathers, right? Father just wants your love, and he will give you love more than you can imagine if you'd only love him back, not for the gifts and the toys that he can give to you, just for him, because he's there. He loves you. He's there. I've sinned. I've done every horrible thing you can do. And to pull me back is tremendous and astounding from those things. That's all he wants. You are his child. He is your father. And I know that if you listen to this and you've made it this far, and you are a parent, you know what I'm talking about. And you don't care about the stuff your kids do. When your kids are little kids, they do all sorts of weird, crazy crap, and they're always trying to please you. They're always trying to show you the amazing stuff they think they're doing, even though you know it's not a big deal. Like all the silly little pictures they draw you, and all the blocks they build, and their little forts and things like that. That's what we do down here to him. He doesn't care about that stuff. The only thing he cares about is that you acknowledge him and you love him and you give him back the love that he's given you. And it doesn't take anything to do that. You don't need to go do mighty things in the world. That's why you don't love this world. You don't want anything from this world. You just want him back. And that's the true nature behind having him either know you or not know you. I'll give you one other thing. One day I was sitting alone downstairs in my parents' house, of course. You know, I've had lots of apartments. I've lived on my own for a long time. And after my divorce, I've had, a really hard time, getting on my feet again. My child support to me is the most important thing that I pay. And as long as that's paid, I don't really care what happens to me other than getting to see my sons. And I'm sitting there alone one day after I gave my kids back to their mother, and I'm talking to Father again, and I'm drinking wine because that's all I really drink now. I'll have like a few glasses of wine here and there, not every day or anything crazy, just every once in a while I feel like drinking wine. And I'm sitting there drinking wine, watching videos, and I laugh and I go, mockingly, I said, the only weapon I have in my house after the Marine Corps, I don't have guns anymore. I just have this ninja sword I bought from a medieval times type event, right? And it was cool. It's a real ninja sword, but I mocked and said, if I had to choose any weapon kind of thing in my own head, like, oh, what weapon would you use if you had to go up and fight that big dragon alone, that big serpent that I saw? And I was like, you know what? I don't need any of that crap. I have a wood stove in my house. It's a wood stove, and I looked over, and after my parents divorced, they had this beautiful, golden, fire poker and fire duster and the small broom for it and the small golden shovel, and all that stuff was gone, and the only thing left. Now, this is getting on into winter, by the way, so I'm like keeping the fire going as I'm drinking. And laughingly, I said, I don't even need that sword, Father. It's like, well, what would you choose, is what I heard in my head, right? And it was like, I couldn't tell if he was talking to me or if I was just talking to myself, but I said, I wouldn't need that. And I looked over and I saw this, this old, crappy fire poker. It was the only one we had left after the divorce. I don't know what happened to the other good ones we had, but the only one we had was this old crappy iron fire poker, right? And it's got a hoop on top, and it's got a little like a curvy hook on the bottom. So it's like, I don't know, it's 3 feet, 3.5 feet long or so. And I said I use that. I would kick his ass with this. That's all I would need. With your strength, Father, all I would need is this fire poker, because that's the only thing I had in my hand because I was feeding the fire. It's like I would take this. And now I have an understanding that everybody keeps talking about this rod of iron. And I looked down and it was like a ton of bricks hit me in the head. Like, are you serious? This is the rod of iron that everybody kept talking about? That might be a stretch, I understand, but it was definitely interesting. And I'll show you a picture of it. I'll take a picture of it and post it with this video as I'm talking about it. But it was definitely interesting to think about after everything that's happened to me. And I have a lot more that I could share with you, but I'm not into that kind of let's start the ministry and I want your money and I want nothing from you. I want nothing from you. Just your time so that you may listen. And that's all. So if anybody hears this to the end, thank you for listening. And I look forward to you guys calling me nuts. I really do. I look forward to it because I finally want to hear people call me nuts. For once. And I'll see you, if you're a believer, I'll see you pretty soon, I think. I hope you're all doing well, and may Father bless you and keep you. Goodbye.